Hello, cruel world. My name is Dr. Sohom. I'm a consultant forensic psychiatrist. I assess mentally disordered offenders for a living. So that you don't have to, you can call me the ominous Sohominous. This video is 5 myths about mental illness in men. Now, some studies suggest that women in the UK are generally more likely to be diagnosed with most mental health conditions compared to men. So roughly about 1 in 5 women might expect a common mental health problem in any given week compared to 1 in 8 men. However, an important consideration is that there is thought to be underdiagnosis in men. So men are much less likely to seek help from mental health issues due to social stigma, reluctance to talk about their emotions, etc., etc. So let's unpack all of that information. Let's get into some of the misunderstandings, some of the myths, and welcome to A Schmike for Schmall Minds. Sorry, I meant to say A Schmike for Schmall Minds. Okay, myth number 1 about men's mental illness is that men experience the same mental illnesses as women. It's true that some mental illnesses are more common in women, but did you know that some mental illnesses are actually more common in men as well? So women are twice as likely as men to be diagnosed with anxiety disorders. There's lots of different types. Collect them all, kids. There's generalized anxiety disorder. There's phobia. There's social anxiety disorder, arachnophobia, etc., etc. Women are more likely to experience depressive episodes more frequently than men. Some studies suggest a ratio of around 2 to 1. And obviously there are some disorders that only women can have, right? Like postnatal depression. That is becoming depressed after the birth of a child. That's correct, right? Wink, wink. That's going to come back later. And what's the reason for that? Why do women suffer some illnesses that men don't? Well, one of the reasons is hormonal fluctuation. So there's changes in estrogen and progesterone levels throughout a woman's life cycle, such as during menstruation, pregnancy, perimenopause. So this can potentially contribute to mood swings, which increases the risk of depression and anxiety. What's that? Oh, hello, Iron Man. How you doing? Okay, you've got a joke, great, about hormones. Okay, go for it. You want everyone to know. Okay, go for it. I don't know, Iron Man. How do you make a hormone? You kick a... Oi! You're going to get me cancelled, Iron Man. I'm not saying that. Jesus. Okay, another illness that's more common in men than women is eating disorders like anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa. Women have them more often than men. Studies suggest that lifetime prevalence of anorexia, for example, is about 4% of females in the UK, whereas the incidence of that same disorder is much lower in men, around 0.3% of the male population. Okay. So that begs the obvious question, which I'm actually going to ask you, my Psych for Soul guys and gals. What mental disorders are more common in men than women? Have a think about it. Let me know in the comment section before I tell you the answers at the end of the video. Let's see how many of them you got right. Okay, myth number 2 about men's mental health is that depression presents pretty much in the same way between men and women, which is not true. Depression can be expressed in many different ways, just like anger, love, disappointment, and patronization and being patronizing. So what are the differences? I've got a list for you. Here are the ways that men present differently to women in depression. Number 1, emotional expression. So women are more likely to feel sad, hopeless, tearful, whilst men express their depression through, irritability, anger, or fatigue. Number 2 ways that men and women differ in the way that their depression present is physical symptoms. So women are more prone to changes in appetite, for example, and body aches, whereas men are more likely to have sleep disturbances. The number 3 way that men and women's depression differs in its presentation is social behaviour. So women are more likely to withdraw socially, they're more likely to isolate themselves, whereas men are more likely to engage in risky behaviour, like gambling or drink driving or getting into fights or taking a shit in public without checking to see if there's toilet paper first. Again, although there's lots of different contributory factors, one of them might be hormones. No, Iron Man, I think we've had enough of your jokes, thanks. Okay, myth number 3 about men's mental illness is that real men don't talk about mental health issues. The fact is, bottling up emotions can be detrimental to your mental health, whereas talking about challenges and seeking help for your mental health issues is a sign of strength, not weakness. If you don't believe me, I'm about to give you a list of some male celebrities who've spoken out about their mental health issues. And I've picked people who are, manly, masculine, buff, handsome, sexy. Oops, sorry, too much. Okay, number one male celebrity who talks about his issues is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. He has opened up about his experience. The Rock has talked about depression in his early 20s. He's highlighted that mental health struggles can affect anyone. You know what? I think I can smell what The Rock is cooking. Number two male celebrity who's spoken up about issues is Ryan Reynolds, who's talked about his battles with anxiety, emphasising the importance of seeking help. And the dude was Deadpool, so that is pretty masculine. Number three male celebrity who has spoken out, who's manly about his mental health issues, is Brad Pitt. So he's discussed periods of depression. He's talked about the value in navigating difficult emotions. Okay, so you're Brad Pitt. That don't impress me much. Well, I'm sorry, Shania, but being an ultra A-list celebrity and then using your platform to normalise conversations about mental health, well, that impresses me much. It impresses me lots. That impresses me a lot. Number four male celebrity who's manly, who's talked about mental health issues, is Stormzy. British grime artist, spoken about the pressures of fame, the importance of self-care for mental health issues. And I don't care what you say, you are not more manly than Stormzy fam. Then boy dare twist up the truth. How dare you twist up the truth? You're getting way too big for your boots. You're never too big for the boot. I got a big size 12 feet on my boots on my feet. Your face ain't too big for my boot. Well said, Stormy. Couldn't have put it better myself. Number five celebrity who's manly, who's spoken about mental health, is Prince Harry. He's spoken candidly about the emotional toll of his mother's death, the importance of therapy in dealing with grief and with trauma. Okay, all right, you got me. Fair enough. Maybe he's not that manly. My brother pushed me into this ceramic dog bowl and it was really hard. It really hurt. Moving on. Myth number 4 about men's mental illness is that men don't experience the baby blues. You see, so this is a genius callback to a facetious comment I intentionally made before. That's what the winking was about. So there's layers to this shit, fam. So baby blues, otherwise known as postpartum depression and anxiety. Actually, that's not strictly true. I'll recant that. Baby blues is just a general feeling of feeling low after the birth of an infant, of a baby, whereas postpartum depression, postnatal depression is more severe than that. It's actual clinical depression. But it can affect men as well as women. In fact, according to the Royal College of Psychiatrists, about 10% of new fathers experience postnatal depression in the UK within the first 2 months postpartum, so the first 2 months of a baby being born, compared to around 20% of women in the UK. So parental postpartum depression, Jesus, that's a tongue twister, isn't it? Parental postpartum depression can develop any time in the first years after childbirth. Symptoms in men can be similar to those experienced by women. So as well as feeling low, obviously, you could be irritable, tearful, you can lack interest or enjoyment in usual activities. There's usually problems with sleeping, there's changes in appetite, there's difficulty concentrating, there's spending loads of time reminiscing when you can go to the pub whenever you wanted and have a full 8 hours of sleep. So what I'm saying is partners of women with postnatal, with not just in general men, but also partners partners of women who have postnatal depression are even more at an increase of getting postnatal depression themselves. By the way, if you're interested in this topic, see my video which I made on the pros and cons of having kids. Always be blogging. And I even outline how much money it costs to raise a kid in this day and age. Go check it out. I'll put the links in the description. Okay, before we move on with our final myth, my Psych for Sore guys and gals, I'm genuinely interested to hear your stories about male mental health issues. Maybe it's yourself, maybe it's somebody you know, maybe it's the happy story where they did seek help and they got better, or maybe it's a sad story where things got bottled up and got worse than they needed to be. Let me know in the schmection below. Okay, final myth. Come on, we're almost there, home stretch. You can do it, get you back into it. Men don't go to therapy. Unlike Tampax, therapy is not only for females. It's true that women like to seek therapy more often. In fact, the British Association for Counselling and Psychotherapy, known as the BACPA, reports that in 2022, 39% of referrals to NHS talking therapies were for men versus 61% for women. But the gap is narrowing. there's a positive trend with more men seeking therapy compared to in the past. So as an example, a BACPA study from 2010 found that only 18% of men had been to therapy compared to 27% of men in 2022. Okay, my Psych for Sore guys and gals, I asked you at the top of this episode which mental illnesses diagnoses are more common in men. They are, of course, before I answer that, I'm just going to introduce you to this channel. This is a Schmike for Schmall Minds. I do a smorgasbord of videos related to mental illness and offending and the crossover between the two. I'm getting into these 5 myths videos, as I'm sure you've realised recently. I've done some on 5 myths about murderers, 5 myths about narcissists. Go and check it out. It's a good channel, is what I'm trying to say. Subscribe, please. Not only does it help me out immeasurably, but if you subscribe, you'll never get hiccups again. You know how annoying it can be. Guaranteed all your money back. Okay, so here's my list of mental illnesses that are more common in men than women. Number 1, substance use disorders. So men are more likely to struggle with substance use, using illicit drugs, for example. I admit that's a sneaky one because I suppose you could say technically it's a social issue rather than a mental health issue, unless it crosses over the line to actual alcoholism or drug dependence. Number 2 diagnosis of mental illness that's more common in men than women is antisocial personality disorder. So I've talked about this extensively on other videos. It's a personality disorder characterized by aggression, being manipulative, impulsive behaviors, lack of empathy, hurting other people, breaking the law, etc., etc. It's diagnosed far more frequently in men than women. I mean, come on, it's a well-known fact that men commit more violence than women. As a kind of example and indication of that, think about this. In the UK right now, there's 83,000 men in prison and only 3.25 thousand women in prison. So female and male prisons are probably the same, the actual prisons themselves, right? Right? Glad you asked me that. I've actually done a video, always be plugging, about 5 common myths about female prison. Again, I'll put the links in the comments section below. Just as a kind of slight, tangent. You could think of antisocial personality disorder as like the younger brother of being a psychopath, psychopathy, and it's thought to be a proportion in some studies of 10 to 1 men to women psychopaths. So there's thought to be about 10 times more male psychopaths than women, although this in itself, is being questioned because there's more evidence coming out that the way it's being measured is unfair, and it focuses on males' behavior like aggression rather than female psychopath behavior like being manipulative. So my point being is that statistic appears to be wrong. And the number 3 and the final psychiatric diagnosis that's more common in men than women is, did you get this, Psych for Sore guys? Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, otherwise known as ADHD. So whereas ADHD can affect people of all genders, it's more common in males, especially young males. So it's more common in boys than it is to girls, especially in childhood. So if you're playing along with that game, the game of which mental disorders are more common in men, I would have given you a bonus point for mansplaining, getting really excited when Die Hard is on TV, being a little bitch when you've just got a touch of the flu, and leaving stubborn skid stains. Okay, I'm about to say goodbye, but before we do that, let's summarize what we learned today, kids, about myths about men with mental health issues. First of all, that even though women do present less often with mental health problems, it could be underdiagnosed. We learned that. We learned that there are some common disorders that are more common in males. We've learned that I've got a crush on Brad Pitt. We've learned that depression presents in different ways between men and women. We've learned that therapy is the opposite of Tampax. And we learned that men can actually experience postnatal depression, otherwise known as postpartum depression. Okay, I've rambled on enough. I think it's time for us both to go. I'm very busy. You've got stuff to do, I'm sure. Go buy my goddamn book. Whatever happens, do not forget. Do not forget. I love you.